And welcome back. As states deal with massive budget holes and millions of people losing their jobs, they're struggling to figure out how to reopen safely while at the same time balancing public health with financial decisions. Now, just about every state in the union starting to open in stages, including the most popular one of them all, California. That state alone, it's got a projected $54 billion deficit, so obviously a lot of ground to cover. Now, to help with that massive undertaking, Governor Gavin Newsom, he's appointed my next guest to co-chair his Economic Recovery Council. Tom Steyer, he's a billionaire environmentalist. He also ran, as you know, for president in the Democratic primary this year. He's kind enough to give us a few minutes. Tom, thank you for the time.
Richard, it's nice to be here with you.
You as well. I really want to get your perspective on a lot of things. But first off, how much of it is feel and how much of it is science when take a state of California with as diverse and as large as it is, you figure out what to open. We just talked about how the state university system, it will not be in person until the end of the calendar year, until the beginning of next, I should say, but yet you're opening in stages. How much of this is you're deciding as you go along?
Well, let me say, it is all iterative, Richard, that it is all a question of having phases. And let me say that Governor Gavin Newsom said from the beginning, we're going to put health first, because only when people are safe and when they realize they're safe can the economy actually come back. And in fact, what we've seen from analysis is that the states that put health first actually have the most robust recoveries. But having said that, there is a very careful phasing of businesses according to safety and health in the order in which they'll be opened. And within those phases, there are protocols, and it's not just feel seat of the pants. It's very much based on what's been going on in the industry and how people understand who are running those businesses and working in those businesses.
I'm curious, do you look at the federal government, more specifically this administration, as a partner in this or an impediment? And I say that because, as you say, you base things off of facts and science. You just had in the last news cycle the president go after Dr. Fauci. You also had the president saying that states were waiting too slow. And obviously, California is not an island. Just below you in Arizona, you have a governor who's moving far more quickly with far less trepidation than does California. Put that all together with the fact that basically you had the administration say, maybe you guys got to go bankrupt, along with where I can tell you from the East Coast, New York State is saying, my God, what are you saying? California and New York, they'd be two of the biggest world economies on their own. But you have the federal government basically saying, don't look to us for help. How do you look at this administration with the challenges you guys are facing?
So the way that we are seeing this, and I know this is the way the governor sees it, is that this is no time for partisanship. And that's the attitude that the governor's taken in dealing with the federal government. That's the attitude that we're taking inside the state between the different levels of government. And I'll give you an example. You know, I know, Richard, that you were referring to the statement that the chancellor of the California State University system made the other day. He made a statement today on CNBC to say that that was an estimate and a preparation for what would happen under certain circumstances, but that in fact, the health statistics and what occurs between now and the purported opening of school will determine what actually happens.
I went back to a piece you wrote a couple months ago in terms of what you learned when you ran for president and what stuck with you. And throughout it, you talk about a theme of inequities, where it's not a level playing field for folks. I just wonder, as you're looking to get California back on good economic footing, if California, who gives a lot more than they get every single year and is looking at a shortfall well north of $50 billion, if the Mitch McConnells of the world, with the president's blessing, say, why would we want to help out a state here and the liberal policies of it? I'm curious. I know you got to take the high road, or you're trying to right now, but you have an administration that's basically saying, hey, I don't care about the first responders. I don't care about the doctors and nurses on the front lines. I don't care what the state has to do to do what's right for Californians. You're on your own. What's the response to that?
Look, we are going to continue to do exactly what we've been doing since this COVID pandemic exploded. And that is, really, we are absolutely putting aside partisanship. I was on the phone earlier today with a member of the task force who's a true dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, talking about an hour-long conversation that she had with one of the Republican legislative heads, where they were, sharing views with each other in a very meaningful way. And I said, look, you're going to make me cry. This is what people are supposed to do in a crisis. This is what this is exactly the model. You say taking the high road. No, this is what we're doing. We are putting those things aside here in California to try and make sure that we take care of the people.
Oh, I know you are, and I've seen some of the daily press conferences by Governor Newsom to that end. I'm just not sure you have a partner that's taking that same high road in the Oval. But let me pivot to, I go back to your campaign. You had a lot of big ideas, and I've heard a lot of folks say that out of a crisis, there is an opportunity. Would you like to see the federal government, and I heard, Powell today over at the Fed say, don't think small, think big here. Would you want to see basically an FDR 2.0, a reimagining of government taking the lead? Because right now you're hearing different voices out of Washington. Now all of a sudden they're concerned with where the money are going to go, that somehow people will be stagnant if they get another stimulus check, that they won't want to go back to work. What do you envision? I mean, I'll put you in the Oval for a second. How would you envision what the government could be in the face of this crisis? I guess similar to what we looked like going back to the Great Depression.
Well, let me say this, Richard. We are in an unprecedented situation. We're having unprecedented levels of unemployment. I know what the official levels are, but I also know that those levels are probably 5% lower than they are now and climbing. And we all know that. And you alluded to the 1930s. The 1930s brought about a change in the relationship between the American government and American citizens. And it's one where I think virtually everybody looking back now says that change was a good one, and that what FDR did was necessary and positive and successful. And so I think every generation has its challenge. Here we are. We're right in the middle of our challenge. Americans are all going to see whether or not we respond justly and whether we respond forcefully, and we need to do both.
You mentioned before that Californians were pulling in the same direction. When Elon Musk, in between giving false information about COVID itself, threatened to basically leave the state if he didn't have his demands met. I know at the end of the day there was a compromise of sorts. Was there a temptation to say, don't let the door hit you know where, to try to basically hold hostage the state of California during a pandemic because of what he wanted to do with Tesla? What was your inclination, and at the end were you happy with how it got sorted out?
Look, I think that actually there's a natural tension between people who run businesses who are desperate to get their people back to work, who are desperate to get the revenues flowing again, who do in fact care about the health and safety of their workers. There's a tension between that and the health officials overseeing that, who are absolutely intent on preserving the health and lives of California workers, and also want those businesses to be opening up as fast as safely possible. What happened with Tesla should be viewed as a big success.
Well, I know you have a huge undertaking still ahead of you there in California. Tom, I appreciate the few minutes, and stay safe.
Richard, thank you. It's wonderful to talk to you. Stay safe, too.
I appreciate that. All right, everyone. When we come back, we will switch gears here, and we've all seen the images, some jarring, others frightening. Guns in America, instead of taking a pause like the rest of this country, you got the NRA ratcheting up its push to expand gun rights and make firearms even more readily available. The trouble is, so far, it appears to be working.